Will I remember to press the right button? Oh, it looks like it, doesn't it? Those social links are way too big. Oh well. Hi, ladies and gentlemen, and anyone else. So this is a one-off kind of podcast because I wanted to do... Excuse me, this is a one-off live stream because I wanted to record a podcast for the LTGuitarist Podcast, which is about a month old at this point. And I've sort of been thinking about this subject for a while, and actually it's something that I'm going through myself, and that's making sure that I have different income streams so that if some kind of worldwide pandemic happens, I haven't screwed myself. And also, passive income seems to be like the buzz phrase within marketing and music at the moment, so I feel like it's kind of something that's everywhere and something that I'm going to talk about the positives and negatives of. I'm using a slightly different microphone setup than normal because I'm going to record audio to a separate source, so if the audio gets janky, do let me know. If I had a chat window, actually, that would be really helpful, wouldn't it? Let me get that up. There it is. And what was the other thing? So I'm going to hit record in a second for the podcast, but we've got a couple of things to do before that. So the format is basically going to be me reading off a script that I have. It's not a full script, it's like little notes, so I have the freedom to kind of bounce around and improvise a little bit based around these subjects, which is a new way of recording podcasts. I normally script everything out thoroughly unless it's an interview situation. So that's a whole big experiment as well, which is great. What else do I need to say? That might be everything. Oh, so there's categories, because of course there are. Between each category, I'm going to refer to the chats, and I think I've got a window with all 5 chat streams open. Twitch, Mixer, YouTube, Periscope, Facebook. Yep, you're all there. Amazing. So just drop questions into the chat or the comments, wherever you're watching, and I will get to them in between sections. They don't even necessarily have to be about this subject, although if it is in the vein of income diversification for musicians or money for musicians, then it will very likely be used in the podcast. So if you want to get a little shout out in the finished podcast, then by all means do that. I feel like that's everything. Oh, just before I started, I was having a really brief chat with Theo Sayers, who's a musician I've collaborated with a couple times, I think. Yeah. And he was basically saying that he wants some advice on how to actually get in touch with blogs, which is, I mean, I struggle with that every time I want attention from blogs. I always forget. The way that I do it, and I've not had a lot of success, but I think it takes more patience than I have. The way that I do it, Old Dreams for a New Age. Hey, how's it going? That's you, isn't it, Theo? Hey, man. Sorry, I just said your name out. I've basically doxed you. The way that I do it is I look for blogs that I would either like to be featured in, or I look for blogs that I would like to be featured in, but that's kind of my end goal. I could feel like if I got in that blog or in that publication, I really will have made it. And what I do is I look for... Well, I get their contact info, and I put it in a spreadsheet, and then I get the contact info... I go on like their Twitter and stuff, and I see what blogs they read, or where those writers get their hot scoops or their hot takes for music, and I put those in the spreadsheet. And I don't contact that blog at the top, the first one I put in, until I've got something published in something that that I know they refer to. And the logic there is that oftentimes I don't end up contacting that big block at the top, because I feel like, as someone who is a blogger, I do review music. That is one of my things that we'll get to in this podcast. If I hear from a band repeatedly, and I do read basically every email I get, I just can't respond to all of them, or many of them at all, actually. If I see the same few names cropping up, and I start to associate those names, like the band's name or the release's name or the PR agency's name, if I start to associate them in any way with stuff that doesn't really interest me, or stuff that I'm just not really into, or if I know they're constantly badgering me, or they're just not, that their kind of communication skills are a bit poor, I will just stop responding to emails. And in fact, I will sometimes flag them as spam, because that saves time long term. So the logic with creating the spreadsheet with the goal blog at the top and then the other blogs underneath it is, you're not harassing this publication that you actually really want to get into until you have something that can legitimize your contacting them. So by being in, so let's take my blog, for example, stabpanda.com. There's a few bloggers around the world that I actually really like, who are way more active than I am, which means that they have the chance to cover much more music. Now, if I happen to see one of these blogs post about a band, and then that band contacts me, I'm going to go, oh, hell yeah. I know that this person trusts them. This blog that I look up to, I know that they trust them. And actually, it's quite cool that they also want to be included in my blog. So I'm then excited to do that. So it's all about kind of being known to someone before you ask them for anything. That was a bit rambly because I hadn't scripted it, but I hope that kind of helps a little bit. And your actual question, which I have just reread because I'm good like that, your actual question was about, do I have any content or any videos about this subject? I'm just trying to think. I know some of the BBC interviews I've done have kind of been about that subject, but they've not gone into an awful lot of detail. So that might be a good podcast subject for the near future. And I feel like if I don't write that down on a post-it now, I'm just going to forget. So pod how to get in blogs. Pen doesn't work. How to get in blogs. I'm going to put that on my wall of, hey, thanks, no worries. I'm going to put that there. So I'm not going to forget about it. Right. So income diversification for musicians, or how to diversify your income. So please do send in any questions about if you're worried about financial security, if you want to know more about how to get more money or different sources of money, that these are all things we're going to talk about. And I'm going to look for questions in between each section, because to be honest, I may well answer the question as soon as you've asked it. I'm just going to look through my notes to see if I've missed anything. No, it doesn't look like it, does it? So I am going to go to Cubase and I'm going to go hit record. I do not actually want the click on. That would be stupid. That's still a click track. Okay. I get the impression that some of my macros and settings have reset in Cubase, which does seem to happen occasionally, and it is not a good time. 1 2 1 2. There we are. That appears to be recording. That screen is still on. Oh, we're going to have a great time, ladies and gents. We truly are. So, can I remember how to do the podcast intro? Because this is a podcast as well, there may be bits where I take another run at a line if I haven't been unclear. I'm not sure if that's going to happen, because sometimes that happens when I script things, sometimes that happens when I don't script things. I don't know what's happening. Please don't ever consider me an expert. The only difference between me and someone else is that I'm talking. And I do like talking. So, welcome back to the LTGuitarist Podcast, a show where I, musician and music educator Liam Taylor, try to help musicians just like myself. No, that is not how the intro goes. We've already screwed it up. Is this the sort of thing I should have on screen? No, I think I can wing it. Welcome back to the LTGuitarist Podcast, a show where I, musician and music educator Liam Taylor, do my best to enable musicians to earn a living off of the music they make. Today we are talking about income diversification, so very specifically how to make money from your podcast. And I know this is a bit of a deviation from the current podcast format, but actually with the the virus, I figure this is something that actually a lot of musicians are worrying about at the moment. So I'm going to talk a little bit about alternative and what's a better way of saying that? The coronavirus has made us think about alternative income streams, as many of our jobs or freelance opportunities have kind of just disappeared. Many musicians are now struggling because they rely on playing live music, and I know many others whose income is dependent on one-to-one instrumental tuition based in schools, which they now can't deliver because all the schools are shut. And I want to mention that actually what we're going to talk about today isn't just about the coronavirus. This is going to be solid advice for whenever the world gets back to normal, and actually other things can happen in the world. We could lose the internet tomorrow. We don't know. There could be another global pandemic next year. Like, all these things are just... I don't want to say they're likely, but they're certainly possible, aren't they? So I think it's only sensible to try and be secure, to try and get different income streams that rely on different... what's that word I'm looking for? What's the end of that sentence? I think we just need to be aware of how important it is to have different income streams. So that's what we're talking about today. And this is something that anyone who's relied on content creation for any single website has encountered. YouTube, for example, is really good at pulling the rug out from underneath its creators, and Twitch isn't secure if that's your only income, because it can fluctuate so drastically. So us people who've been making stuff for YouTube for years know that YouTube by itself is not a good idea. That's no way to live your life. That's no way to support a family. So it's all about getting different income streams. So today's question is, how can we as musicians become more financially secure? How can we protect ourselves against local and global situations we may not be able to foresee? The short answer is diversify, and the long answer is coming up now. The long answer is the rest of this podcast, if you didn't see that coming. So I've got 3 categories of income for musicians: music performance, passive income, and active online income. And then to finish, we're going to have my golden apple piece of advice. So stick around to the very end if you want that, which you do, which is why I've put it at the end, because I know how the algorithm works. And remember that the idea here is that we shouldn't rely on any one of these income streams. They work best as a combination. I truly cannot stress that enough. So let's take a look at category 1, music performance. Music performance, for the sake of this podcast, is going to be anything that involves playing an instrument. So anything around live music, anything around music education, anything around session music or music production. So I appreciate that this is the thing that currently, with coronavirus, many musicians are struggling with. And I wanted to include it, firstly, so that we have a really good idea of what our base income is, where our base income is coming from, and maybe get some ideas on how we can grow upon that. And second, well, we don't know next year if we have a global situation where the internet disappears. And in that situation, we're only going to have live music or music production and radio, that kind of thing. So the whole point here is to be financially secure regardless of what happens around the world. So here are some things to think about. Firstly, MVP, minimum viable product. This is a marketing term, and it means what is the very bare bones version of whatever it is you want to do. What is the minimum that could look like, the smallest that could look like. I'm just going to check on the recording here. You know what? I'm going to save it. I'm going to carry it on because we play it safe here. MVP, minimum viable product. So what is the bare minimum that you need to do to get out there and start playing music? Whether you're a band or a solo artist, if you're not gigging now, what is the absolute bare bones you can get away with to go out there and start earning money by playing gigs? And I know there's not a lot of money from playing gigs at the moment, is there? I know there's not a lot of money to be earned from playing gigs at the moment, is there? But the sooner you get started doing the crappy unpaid gigs, the sooner you can get to the well-paid, fun gigs, yeah? So that's thing one. Thing two, if you can't get gigs yet, can you busk? Can you sit on the street corner and play your guitar and get a few pennies thrown at you? Even if you are gigging, busking is still a really good idea because of the amount of foot traffic that you gain and the amount of eyeballs that you have. And yeah, there's money as well, which is also good and exactly what we're talking about. Okay, so if your band is gigging, would you consider doing covers or doing an entire tribute night? And I know many of us are annoyed at how popular tribute nights are, but to an extent, you kind of need to go where the money is. Yeah? So just suck it up and consider being in a cover band for a little bit. When you started your band, chances are that you said, oh, let's learn this AC/DC song, this Guns N' Roses song, this Kings of Leon song, whatever it was. You learnt a piece of music rather than, awkwardly sitting in a room staring at each other and no one doing anything. You probably had an icebreaker to learn, didn't you? So why not do that on stage? Yeah? I'm going to take a breath. Sometimes I talk too much and then I get out of breath and then I realise, am I panicking? No, I'm not panicking. I just didn't breathe enough whilst talking. I keep it real here, fam. I don't know what fam is short for. Famalam? It's short for Famalam, isn't it? This won't be in the podcast, I hope. If you know music, which you do, you're a musician. If you know music, could you DJ? I know many musicians are kind of... This is similar to the covers band thing, isn't it? Musicians aren't always fans of DJs because they think it's so easy. So treat this as an opportunity to show them up. Go out there, let's see what you can do. Let's see how easy being a DJ is. Because you know what? There's money there as well, isn't there? People might not want to hear your original music, but people will want to hear... But, what am I trying to say? People might not want to hear your music, but you can still earn money being a DJ, can't you? So go out there and do a good job. If you've played a few gigs, would you consider running your own night with your own band and a few other bands in your network? Would you be a live music promoter? And this is an interesting one because actually music promoters don't exist quite as much as they used to even a few years ago. We sort of just rely on bands to run their own nights and promote their own events now. So actually, why not do that with a few mates bands, Again, it's not an awful lot of money, but if there isn't a promoter, if there's not an awful lot of money there, but if you're the promoter, then you get to pocket all of the promotion costs, don't you? So It's just a case of thinking about what middlemen do you not need. And actually, promoting is really hard, so it might not be for you, but you might also be really good at it. So maybe give it a go. If you can play your instrument, which I hope you can, if you can play an instrument, you probably know someone who can't. Would you be able to teach them how to play? Don't just assume this is something you can do. Don't just assume you can teach because you can play. It's a different skill set, but if you can play an instrument, that's one big step. What am I trying to say? If you can play an instrument, it's worth trying to teach, or it's worth learning how to teach, because people are always going to want to know how to do what you do. So definitely consider music tuition as an income stream. Where are we? Oh, I have got a very itchy shoulder all of a sudden. And I didn't actually need to share that, did I? But you would have noticed. Because the camera is so very big at the moment. Okay, here's one. Can you work out what it is that makes your playing stand out? Why are you better than the guy next to you? What specifically do you do that the other person can't do? Once you know that, can you get session work because of it? People think session work is just a case of showing up and playing your guitar or whatever instrument. It's not. You have to have your unique selling point. You've got to be able to do one thing better than anyone else. So when someone's in their studio and thinks, ooh, I need a really rad synthesizer solo, they're going to have a more specific idea of what that rad synthesizer solo is, and you need to make sure that you can supply that rad synthesizer solo. It means you're not going to get every gig, but you're not going to get every gig anyway. It means that you are going to get the gigs for that specific musician. Dum 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 da dum. If you know how to record music yourself, can you get some money from recording demos with other musicians in your network? The advent of home recording technology has meant that everyone can record music, but not everyone knows how to get started doing that, and not everyone actually, even if they're watching tutorials on YouTube or wherever, they still might struggle how to do it properly. And that's where you can come in. So you can maybe say, oh, I'll record a demo EP, I'll record 3 tracks, whatever, and I'll show you what I'm doing as well. So you're teaching and providing a service, and they may or may not actually retain that information. I've got every now and again I'll do some work with, I think there's a few different people that come to me, like I sort of help them set up recording stuff and they've done demos at home, but they'll still come to me for like specific things. So like vocals is one thing that actually bedroom guitarists or bedroom producers don't really have a space where they can record nice vocals, and I've not got the best mics, but I have mics, and I've got a little sound booth which is actually more than most people have to be honest. So I'm a few steps ahead there, and I can earn income by letting people record in my space. So that's another little income stream there. Lastly, can you earn some money writing for film or video game scores? And I'm going to get into this a little bit in the next section. There are 2 types of income you can gain through film, video, and TV scoring. Sometimes you will just be given a check and then someone will own that piece of music. And that's great for some situations. That's great if actually, oh, I could do with 300 quid to upgrade my cat. I don't know. Like, sometimes a paycheck's just nice, isn't it? But sometimes you want to say, no, actually, I'd rather have 15p every time this thing is aired, because it could be the next big TV show, in which case that's quite a lot of money over time. And that takes us quite neatly into passive income. Let's just go through questions. Okay. Oh, interesting. Not that interesting. Sort of. I've got a private one through Twitter. They want to stay private, but they want to stay anonymous, rather. I'm going to talk about royalties in a second. That's in the passive income bit, but you're right to mention not getting a paycheck and just getting royalties instead for film, game, and TV. That's coming. Hold your horses. Okay. I'm going to pause the recording again. Catch my breath, because I do like to breathe. Cool. Category 2. Passive income. Passive income is a big thing at the moment. There's a lot of ebooks about why passive income is good, and there's a few about why it's bad as well. Remember that the idea here is to diversify our revenue streams, so if you lean on any one of these, it's not going to work. I am going to repeat that every opportunity I get because it's so very crucial. So what do we mean when we say passive income? Passive income is any money that is generated from work you have already done. Okay, so some of these will rely on releasing music, and some of them will not. We're going to look firstly at the ones which rely on releasing music, which includes royalties, album and merch sales, synchronization, and ad revenue from music videos. There are others. These are the main ones, or these are the ones that jump out to me the most, certainly. So if you're releasing music, you need a royalty collection agency. It's that simple. You need one. You also need to seek opportunities for your music to be played on the radio, so you have some income to claim. So yes, you I put a spelling error in that sentence and have lost my train of thought. It's good, isn't it, that I can just confess that I don't know what I'm doing. So writing, creating and releasing music isn't enough to start earning royalties. You need to actually put it out into the world. You need to actually let people know that you have music and why they should be playing it. Especially at first, because you're not going to get fans out of nowhere, are you? That's ridiculous. And this is the same with album sales and merchandise. Sure, you've released the music, but people need to know about it. So you need to be proactive about marketing, and in order to get people interested. There's many other blogs and podcasts about doing exactly that. In fact, I've definitely talked about that in the past. I sort of touched on that before I hit record on the podcast, didn't I? So I suggest that you do research further around how to promote a release and how to get radio plays and blog placements if you need to do that. You also need to be active in seeking synchronization deals with films, TV, games, whatever. You could get a one-off fee for these deals, which is why it was in the previous section, or you could get a royalty for every time the film or the show is aired. And that the royalty aspect of that is interesting because it could mean that you don't get an awful lot of money up front, but 10 years from now you could have accidentally scored a cult classic, and that could be airing every single afternoon, and just like that you get a little bit of money every time it's aired. So that's a great way to get this kind of drip passive income. And once you have a few streams like that, actually that's when things start to get a lot more financially secure, because it means that yes, you might not actually have a day job right now, or you might not be on tour, or you might not be gigging or busking, but you did that score work several years ago, and actually that can keep you afloat for a little bit. So that's why diversification is so important. Here are a few other passive income ideas for music that don't necessarily rely on releasing music. Ebooks and online courses. If you can teach music in person, can you learn how to use a video camera and deliver a paid online course? Or could you write a book about how to do what you do? Whatever it is you do, that is. This is another big one. I see a lot of people talking about doing ebooks. In fact, most of the, I'd say maybe 50% of the music YouTubers that I really enjoy have some kind of book or online course. And actually, those are a great source of income because you only have to record those things once. and then you get the income from that for potentially the rest of your life. That's what makes it passive income. Yes, you have to do work in the first instance, but after that, you don't. You're just going to continue to get money from it, which is perfect, which is exactly what you want. Ad revenue from YouTube content and podcasts. Oh, hang on, actually. Yeah, no, I am going to talk about that bit first. I need to add a word under this. No, I don't, because I cover it next. This is why notes are really important. Ad revenue from YouTube content and podcasts. If you make music, can you coherently and informatively talk about how you make music? If so, why not consider making video tutorials for YouTube or discussing these topics as a podcast, like exactly what I'm doing right now? There is a threshold for earning ad revenue for most platforms, but once you reach it, that content will continue to earn you some level of income as long as the internet still works. And if the internet goes down, it will probably come back again, because we need the cat videos. Like, really. Okay, that's category 2. Passive income is essentially, if I wanted to summarize passive income, it's all about putting some work in behind the scenes and then letting that pay off over time. And you can kind of take a scattergun approach to it, which is a little bit what I'm doing at the moment, to be honest, and just sort of put fingers in pies all over the place, and then maybe one of those things will allow you to earn income down the line. And this is something that I'm enjoying at the moment, having taken a step back from YouTube a little bit. I'm still earning ad revenue from the videos that I've made over the last 5 years. That's not going to stop just because I'm uploading less, which I'm a little annoyed I didn't realise a couple of years ago, because I would have made less videos. But hey, whatever. Category 3. Active online income. I don't have a proper name for this category, so suggestions are welcome. This is kind of halfway between the previous 2 categories, but I do feel like it exists as its own thing. It relies on your ability to regularly stream or upload content which doesn't necessarily have a long shelf life. So someone might watch it as you stream, but a week later it might not be relevant. This could have some value after the fact. I've just said that bit. Why have I got that there twice? Good job, Liam. The clearest example of this is live streaming. You can get subscriptions or bits on Twitch, for example, if you have the kit for recording videos and making music. That shouldn't be one sentence. Wow. I think I did this quite late last night, or this morning, whatever. The clearest example of this is live streaming. You can get subscriptions or bits on Twitch, for example. If you have the kit for recording videos and making music, then you have pretty much all the kit you need to stream. You could stream a podcast, like I'm doing. You could stream a podcast recording, like I'm doing right now, very professionally, I might add. You could stream a music creation session, or you could do an online concert. And this is something that we're seeing a lot of people all over the world do because of the coronavirus that's happening at the moment. You could, thanks to sites like Patreon, do these exclusively for fans who are sending you whatever amount of money every month. Or you could do a bonus for those patrons. You could do a pre-show question and answer session and then go live on Twitch or Mixer, YouTube, wherever else. Or you could do a concert exclusively for those people. You could do a ticketed event if you want, which I believe is what RuPaul's Drag Race are doing with the theatre shutdowns, the venue shutdowns. I believe that they're honouring ticket sales to a exclusive live stream, but it's not going to be public. You have to have a ticket in order to get into that live stream. So there's still an element of exclusivity and rarity, scarcity to that, which has a inherent value. So that's worth trying. Another example is blogging, something I know a little bit about. If you know music, which you do because you make music, if you know music and can write, could you review music? There are services like Submit Hub, where you can earn money for listening to and writing about underground bands. There is a moral issue there for me, but there might not be for you, in which case crack on, earn some money. My moral issue is that I don't like the pay to play model, and I feel like Submit Hub is essentially that. So I, as the content manager for stabpanda.com, website that reviews independent underground music, I probably won't, because I don't know what the situation is going to be in a few years, but I probably won't do any kind of paid placements on that website, because I just don't feel like it's tricky to put into words, but basically, like, the value of the music that someone makes, the quality of the music someone makes, has nothing to do with their spare income. And I feel like a solo artist can make something really amazing, or four millionaires could sit in someone's lounge and write something really mediocre, but you're going to hear about the four millionaires, aren't you? Not the one poor person who made something genuinely exciting. That's essentially why I don't want to take money for the Stab Panda music blog. But I would say if you're a musician and you're struggling for income, maybe that's less of a moral issue for you. I'm opening it up, and I'm not going to make any judgments on you, about you. I'm not going to judge you if you decide that that is a viable income option for yourself. You do what you've got to do. Right. If there's no questions, the golden apple. I don't know why apple. Golden carrot would make more sense, wouldn't it? But here we are. Golden apple. So this one's kind of tricky. This golden apple is kind of tricky because it's really easy to say this out loud and much, much harder to do. It sounds like such a simple thing, but I am very aware that it's not. No freelance career can ever be as secure as a day job. It just can't. You need to have something that has a contract. And often, work that has a contract isn't fun work. It's actual labour. It's actual work. But, nonetheless, my golden apple advice is that you try to get some kind of day job relating to music in the most tangential of ways, if possible. And that is easier said than done, but you might need to slightly broaden your horizon in terms of... no, that's a terrible way to say that. That is easier said than done, but you can kind of broaden your definition of what music-related really means. You could work in a record shop. You could work in a studio. And I know it's a little bit soul-destroying, but actually, like, would you spend 5 hours a week mopping a studio floor? Like, really? Just... you get to be around instruments, you get to be around musicians. Would that really be so bad? Would you, if it comes down to it, spend 10 hours stacking shelves of CDs and DVDs in a supermarket? And I know it's a little bit soul-destroying to think about, but actually think about the security. If you stack shelves in a supermarket, or if you work in a record shop, you could work your way up to managing a record shop. And that would be so much more secure, and you'd have the possibility at that point to do gigs or to perform your own music or sell your own music in the record shop. But you don't get that without the whole stacking shelves bit, do you? If you stack shelves in a supermarket, you could start to know CDs and... what's the point of that bit? If you have to spend some time stacking CDs in supermarkets, well, you're going to get to know the top 10 pretty well, aren't you? And I think actually I'm quite out of touch with popular music, even though I work with young people. That's my day job. I don't know half the bands they tell me about. I have to go look them up, spend 10 minutes thinking, why is this popular? And then I have to go teach them that song. That's what my life is like at the moment. If you're in touch with what the top 10 is in any way, you're going to have a better idea of how to manipulate that and how to make that work for you. So I'm going to kind of leave that golden apple dangling there. I do think that it's incredibly difficult to be a freelancer at the moment, and I think truly we need some level of security. And I know that's really easy to say, but that's kind of how it is currently. Unless you literally write the next Crystal Maze theme, I think you probably will need to have some kind of day job. But I think you can get something music related, and it will probably be easier than you think it is. Not saying it's easy, just saying it's a little bit easier. And that is where I'm going to leave it for this episode of the LTGuitarist Podcast. I know we ended on a slightly scary note there, but actually I think, again, it's worth saying it again, it's all about diversifying. It's all about having these different income streams. Not one of these is going to work by itself. You've got to do all of them, and then you'll be in a reasonable, financially secure state. And it's possibly a little bit scary to think about, oh, I have a band, but we're not gigging that much, so now I need to busk, and now I need to run events, and I've got to teach bass as well. Oh, and I've got to get a day job mopping a floor. Do it step by step. I mean, I realise that with the virus right now, you're not going to be able to do anything, possibly, but think about how you can let people know about your latest music release. Think about, could I write music reviews for money? Think about, could I be a DJ? Could I broadcast over Twitch a DJ set? Because DJs, we all know, are hacks. I'm being a little bit tongue-in-cheek there, but only a little bit. So go on, do a better job than that DJ, and you can broadcast from your armchair in the current climate, can't you? So thanks for listening to the LTGuitarist Podcast. I would really appreciate it if you subscribed on whatever platform you are listening to now, and also any kind of 5-star review would be hugely appreciated. Thank you very much, and goodbye. So that's the awkward end of the podcast where I've got to keep going for the stream. Oh, that's a lot of talking. How did I do? 33 minutes. Okay, that's a good podcast length. So, that is about everything I had to say for this episode. I feel like I could have been a little ramblier than that. That was pretty concise. I'm pretty happy with that. I am going to be on Twitter for the foreseeable forever, even without the virus. So if you have any questions about income for musicians, please do let me know. I am going to have a think about doing specific... I'll maybe do something else like this about specifically how to get onto music blogs. That might be a good idea. Yeah. Thanks for hanging out. Wherever you're watching this, please do subscribe, or please do hit the like button. I don't really know what you're watching on. Well, I do. I know there's 5 places here. So wherever you're watching, hit the like button, just hit all the buttons. If you see a button that looks like it needs to be pressed, you just give that a poke. Yeah? Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you later. Toodles. Where's my button? Toodles.